Lions enter Thanksgiving Day as the best team in the NFL. All right, welcome in. Week 12 is in the books. We are 2/3 of the way through the NFL season. Week 13, of course, kicks off with a triple header of games on Thanksgiving Day. And we're going to start with one of the teams that's playing on Thanksgiving, that plays every Thanksgiving. And no one's complaining about the Lions playing on Thanksgiving anymore the way that they used to. The Lions enter Thanksgiving Day. They play against the Bears as the best team in the NFL. And over the last few years, so much of the Lions' revival and where they've been has been about Jared Goff and Ben Johnson and Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown and that offensive line, Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker and all of those guys, and rightfully so. And it's not just about that anymore. It's not just about an offense that's been innovative, that's been physical, that can beat you a ton of different ways. It's about the complete team. And I think a lot of people deserve credit for where the Lions defense is right now. And a couple things that are pretty amazing about where they are and where I feel like the Lions are going right now on the defensive side of the ball. They're doing this without Aiden Hutchinson, who over the first 5 weeks of the year was not only their best player, he might have been the best pass rusher in all of football through 5 weeks. It's been 6 weeks since they lost him. They've actually been better, both in yards allowed and points allowed, over the last 6 weeks than they were over the first 5 weeks of the season with Hutchinson in there, which is pretty freaking remarkable. And then you look at how they've played over the last 3 weeks, and they've taken it to another level. They have not allowed a touchdown in 10 quarters. They've only allowed 12 points. That's on 4 field goals. They dominated again this week. This week it was the Colts. The week before it was against the Jaguars. They are playing end-to-end phenomenal football. And I think, Dan Campbell deserves credit for riding it out with Aaron Glenn early in his tenure. Now, if you remember, it was pretty quick that he pulled the plug on Anthony Lynn as his offensive coordinator. And a lot of people back then were wondering, why don't you do the same with Aaron Glenn? Really, their first 2 years, Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes' first 2 years in Detroit, the defense was not good. But there was a recognition there that part of their plan was, we're going to build the offense up first. They felt like what they inherited from Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn was closer on offense than they were on defense, and that it would be easier to build strength in the offense first and have a little bit more of a slow build on defense. And so the offense was always going to be better first. And I think the other part of it was building out what Aaron Glenn's vision was going to be and wanting versatile pieces in the secondary that he could move around. And now he has that. And guys like Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch and, Terrion Arnold, who can play inside and outside as a rookie at corner. They've got all these versatile pieces on the secondary. They've got guys who can get pressure up front. They've got smart, heady linebackers. So sticking with Aaron Glenn and letting Aaron Glenn's vision manifest is a very, very big part of this. And then I think you give, the personnel department credit also for some of the acquisitions they've made over the course of this calendar year that have made up for the loss of Aiden Hutchinson. It's going and getting a DJ Reader, knowing he's probably not going to be ready for the start of the year coming off of the torn quad. And now he's a force. It's going and bringing in Zadarius Smith after losing Hutchinson. Now I think you put it all together and you see a group that's dominant, that's versatile, that's difficult to play against, and that becomes even harder to play against when the Lions are playing with a lead, which is at this point almost always. So the Lions offense is still what it has been, which, is an efficient, physical, versatile group that can beat you a million different ways. But you can say a lot of those same things about the defense now. And that's what makes the Lions really scary going into Thursday and going into the stretch run of the 2022 or the 2024 season, is that they can beat you on offense. They can beat you on defense. They can beat you with their special teams. We said it earlier in the year. One of my favorite stats was from a game earlier in the year where at one point in this game, and the Lions had 42 points and just 9 net passing yards. Sort of tells the story of who the Lions are. As good as Jared Goff's been, and he's been fantastic and deserves mention in the MVP conversation, they don't need Jared Goff to be Superman to win on a week-to-week basis because they can beat you so many different ways. And, the defense is certainly a big part of that and a much better unit than it was even last year. And again, that's so remarkable given that they don't have Aiden Hutchinson. And the great thing about it is Aiden Hutchinson might be coming back, is that they might wind up getting him back for the Super Bowl. That's still a realistic possibility. Again, like we've been over this before, where really where they are right now, there was you don't want to see an injury happen the way that it happened. Of course, it was a scary thing for everybody involved, but given the circumstances, things worked out for Aiden Hutchinson. No artery damage, no ligament damage, no nerve damage. He went and had the surgery done by one of the top guys for this type of surgery in the world there in Dallas. And because it was such a clean break, has a very real chance to come back for the Super Bowl if the Lions get there. And with each passing week, it seems more likely that that will happen and that they will get there. And he'd be joining a defensive line group again that's probably better now for having had to play without having that great pass rusher there on the line. And so the idea of him joining a line with DJ Reader and Aiden Hutchinson in the playoffs is certainly something to think about. My second topic for this week is where the Eagles are and kind of what Saquon Barkley's added to that team and how real a threat they are. And it's just interesting to think back to where we were earlier in the year. I had mentioned a few different times, like how strange it was that Nick Sirianni is on the hot seat. And not because like the Eagles don't do things the right way. They do. They generally have. Jeffrey Lurie is one of the best owners in the sport. Howie Roseman's built a great roster, but just the environment there is different than anywhere else. And there aren't too many other franchises where a coach would go through 3 years where he'd make the playoffs all 3 years after inheriting a 4-win team and make a Super Bowl and would go into year 4 on the hot seat. But that's where Sirianni was. It didn't look great after the first 2 weeks of the year. They were still figuring things out with 2 new coordinators and Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio on offense and defense, respectively. And then they hit the pause button in week 4. They're able to regroup a little bit. And, one thing that Sirianni wanted all his players and coaches to do was really reflect on everything that had gone right and everything that had gone wrong over the first 4 weeks of the season. And they've come in, I think they've come back a team that's, I think, more cohesive, better within their schemes. And obviously they haven't lost since. And a huge, huge, huge part of that is how the identity on offense has really kind of loaded up behind the run game, where when Jalen Hurts went back and reflected on some of the things that he and Kellen Moore could do better, and Kellen was a part of that conversation, of course, as well. They wanted to lean into what Saquon Barkley was bringing to the table, because Saquon Barkley was their best player through 4 weeks. And so they leaned into the play action game a little bit more. Now, at the time, they were dealing with receiver injuries. They've gotten healthier at that spot, but it's still the identity of who they are. And Saquon's been such an incredible, incredible, incredible acquisition for them. And I think that there's a real lesson in the acquisition of Saquon Barkley that other teams can take from it, which is that the Eagles have a philosophy, have a foundation, but that does not mean that they aren't flexible. Now, they hadn't invested in the running back position really since paying DeMarco Murray, which followed paying, Shady McCoy, which followed paying Brian Westbrook. So it's not they haven't invested in running backs before, but there was a period there where they didn't see it as a great investment to go and pay a running back. And so they saw it as one of those positions that you could churn, that was fungible, where you could find guys to play that would be Super Bowl, that would be suitable. They won a Super Bowl that way. They went to another Super Bowl with that formula. But over time, their flexibility and philosophy allowed for them to examine the market and look at it and say, you know what, running backs have been devalued to the point where the very best running backs, the top 4 or 5 guys, like the guys who are truly unicorns, have actually now become good value. It's something that the Niners took advantage of a couple of years ago in acquiring Christian McCaffrey. And it's something certainly that the Eagles have taken advantage of in looking at and signing Saquon Barkley in free agency. Their philosophy of it with it was, well, wait a second, what is the price? The price is what Atlanta's paying for Darnell Mooney, is a guy who touches the ball 300 times a year, and a guy who can affect the passing game and the running game, and a guy who's 230 pounds and run between the tackles, but can line up in the slot and run a route like a receiver can. Is that guy more valuable than a second or third receiver? Again, no offense to anybody that might be the example here. Darnell Mooney's the one that I mentioned. Um, of course, that guy's more valuable. Of course, Saquon Barkley is more valuable, and so it winds up being a really good fit. Saquon Barkley is playing behind by far the best offensive line he's ever played behind. He's already got a career high in yardage. He's beaten his career high by 80 yards with 6 games to go. He's got a shot at Eric Dickerson's single season rushing record. He's got a shot at Chris Johnson's single season scrimmage yards record. It really is remarkable. And he is part of the reason why the Eagles are so dangerous going forward. You can go over a million reasons why. They've gotten younger in the secondary, right? Like they with Cooper DeJean and Quinion Mitchell along the lines of scrimmage, their investment has paid off in their ability to replace Jason Kelsey and Fletcher Cox. The coordinator hires now have worked out, and having Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio in. And I, as I see it right now, they would line up as the top contender to the Lions in the NFC. All right, finally, our third topic. We had the much ballyhooed Harbaugh on Monday night. I don't think maybe we even pay enough homage to what a crazy circumstance that is, that you have two guys that grew up in the same bedroom, going head to head on these sorts of stages. Of course, there was a much bigger stage on the Super Bowl. What was that now, 12 years ago? But certainly, you see two teams go in there that are mirror images of each other. The Chargers are certainly coming along. I wouldn't take this as any sort of referendum on where the Chargers are. The Chargers ran up against the full-fledged version of what Jim Harbaugh's vision is and what John Harbaugh has built there. And I think one thing, again, that you have to look at with the Ravens is how they're one of these teams that evolve over the course of the year. And early in the year, they had real problems defensively. They still have some. They lost some key pieces on defense. Of course, Patrick Queen is one of them. They leaned into younger players, both on the edge and at linebacker and, in the secondary. It was always going to take time. There was a lot of transition, the same way we've talked about their offensive line. It looks like the defense is coming together to hold the Chargers at 23 points, and that's 23 with a very late touchdown. You're going in there, doing that on the road on a Monday night without Roquan Smith, their leader on the defensive side of the ball. I think you give him a ton of credit like that. Lamar Jackson played really well. Derrick Henry played really well. That Ravens team, again, is continuing to get better. And I know that Steelers game didn't go the way that they wanted it to, but I think Monday's a testament to how John Harbaugh's team seemed to get better over the course of a year. And I certainly think you're seeing that. And I certainly think that this is going to be a team that's going to be better at the end of December than it is right now, and should be better at the end of January than it is at the end of December, which of course will put them in position to get back to the Super Bowl after 12 years away. All right. Appreciate you guys coming out. We got a huge week coming up. I'll have a mailbag for you on Wednesday of this week. We'll have another Breer report at the end of the week and a ton of football coming. We got 3 games again on Thursday. We get the Black Friday game on Amazon between the Chiefs and the Raiders. I get revenge on Saturday. We got a full slate coming on Sunday. Can't wait to get to it with all of you guys. Appreciate you guys coming out. We'll see you for the mailbag on Wednesday.